Actually, 18 questions for her. And I've got, so number one, so what did your netball journey look like?
My netball journey started in country Victoria, so not far away from where you live. So I grew up in a tutor and started playing netball when I was about 8 years of age. And like most country kids, played a whole range of sports, but netball really was my main passion. So I played basketball in the summer, netball through the winter, and then had to make a really tough decision about 16 years of age which way to go with sports, because being a regional athlete, there was lots of travel involved. So I'm not really sure why I chose netball over basketball, but I did, and I don't regret it at all. So moved to Melbourne with university, in and out of state teams, got selected to play with the Melbourne Vixens, and then moved up north to play with the Queensland Firebirds and saw out the rest of my playing career. So that's a little snapshot of everything, but I think I was really lucky growing up in country Victoria. I had a role model in Sherelle McMahon, who grew up in a neighbouring country town as me. So I used her story, I suppose, as inspiration, because I knew that I could be just like her and make the top of my sport.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Caity. Yep. Awesome. All right. We'll jump into question 2. So what was your driving force to make a career out of netball? What was your passion to sort of drive you?
That's a tricky one. I think my passion was actually netball. I was really passionate about the sport, and that's probably what kept me playing. You get to a certain point where everybody's just as good as you are, and but it's the players that work hard and do the extra little things that end up flourishing at a later stage. So I think because I just loved the sport and I had that passion, the rest sort of took care of it from there. So I think it's really important to always sort of remember to have fun with what you are doing, because if you're not having fun, it becomes quite monotonous and it's really hard to excel.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Question 3. So what was something challenging you had to overcome in your netball career?
Probably the biggest challenge would have to be rupturing my anterior cruciate ligament. So I had to have knee surgery, and there was a couple of challenges around that. I hurt my knee 2 weeks out from the 21 and under national netball championships, which was actually a really crucial time in terms of selection into elite teams. So lots of girls that I was in the Victorian under 21 side with then went on to make it was the ANZ Championship competition at that stage. So I fell out of the high performance loop, had to sit on the sidelines for 12 months, and I had to learn how to walk again. The surgery was really tough, I suppose, physically, but I was really lucky that the netball clubs that I was involved with created different positions and still kept me around the girls, involved in netball. And I ended up taking on sort of an assistant coach role. At that stage, no experience in coaching, but having some eyes from the sideline, it actually helped my game when I got back out there on court. So it was really tough, I suppose, in my player pathway side of things. Tough physically to get strong again and learn how to play. But I just had to, I suppose, reset my goals and focus on the things that I could control, and coming back to that passion, because I loved playing. I wanted to get back out there on court, so I wanted to make sure that I did all of those tedious exercises that physios, sports doctors, podiatrists, etc. provide, so that I was in the best condition that I could be to hopefully make a return.
Yeah. Oh, and that's pretty inspiring to like us players to, I guess, see that from an elite player's point of view. Yeah, because there's a lot of injuries and stuff that, like, a lot of players around me have injuries and they always doubt themselves and stuff, but to actually hear a story like this is really awesome and really inspiring.
And it can be really challenging the first time you get back out there on court after an injury, because you might be questioning, are you ready to play? But if the health professionals around you have given you all the all clear to play, you've got to trust that and get out there on court. And the other thing that you can do, I suppose, as a teammate is really rally around the injured girls, because they're disappointed that they can't play. And then, like with my experience as well, I had a position created for me to still be involved. So still go to training, because you can learn things by being an extra set of eyes. And yeah, you just see things from a different perspective. So I think it's really important to keep touch, keep that motivation, and sometimes just put a hug around your teammate as well during that time.
Yeah,
maybe not
really
in the
good,
COVID-19 time.
I know, how sad is that? We can't high five, we can't even see our netball team, which is, yeah, disappointing. But anyway, so we'll go on to question 4. So what do you do to prepare for an upcoming match?
I use the training week to prepare for the upcoming match. I think it's really important to utilise however many sessions that you've got together as a team to sort of discuss what your game plan's going to be, to have an idea of the strategies that you're going to try to implement. And it's really important that those training sessions are really good quality as well, because you play the way you train. So you don't want to take it easy during the week and then rock up on game day and put out your best performance. So you really need to make sure that you've got that intensity there. So I think, the training week is really important for what's ahead with the game day.
Oh,
do you find that as well?
Pardon?
Do you find that as well?
Yeah, I find like, we get coaches that really put that into us and tell us that we do have to really train the way we play, because that's where the intensity is created in the game. And I think it's really important to do that. So yeah, I think coaches, like our coach was like to us, if we're not training like we're playing, well, we're probably not going to put that good performance out on the court come game day.
Yeah. And sometimes you can start a little bit slow in the game. So if you haven't really had that intensity, if you haven't been hard on each other in terms of the defence as well, it can be a little bit of a shock to the system to get going at the start of the game. So to be able to perform the best you can right from that first centre pass, I think it's really important to maximise what you've got during the week. Yeah,
that's so important. And just pre-match, what do you like to do to sort of settle your nerves before like a really big match?
That's something that I probably took a little bit of time to figure out myself. In the earlier games in the ANZ Championship, I think the nerves got the better of me. But by the later stage, I had a bit more of a routine and a bit more of a, system in place to be able to control the nerves. And I think, again, I put it back down to the training week. So I knew that all of the questions that I needed to ask, I had to do before game day, so that whatever happened on game day, I knew that I could perform. Having some nerves is good, because it means that you care and you're excited. But obviously, if you're overstimulated, that can lead to negative performance. So I found that I got confidence in what I did during the week to know that I could get up on game day. And there was a really interesting story. I think it was 2018. The Firebirds were in Melbourne playing the Melbourne Vixens. And as the team bus was due to depart from our accommodation to the venue that we were playing, there was an AFL game that finished, an NRL game that finished, and there was also a music concert that finished. And our car was parked off-site, 8 stories underneath the ground. And so it was our manager and our physio were stuck in the cars underneath the ground and couldn't get out to pick us up to take us to the game. So we arrived at the game. We had to get taxis. We were thinking about walking or catching a tram. We arrived at the game. The shooters didn't have any time to shoot at the post. We pretty much, Kate got out there, warmed up and played. And so
Yeah.
you be able to, regardless of what happens, be able to get out there and perform. And I even heard stories with the Diamonds that lights went off mid-game. I think a bus broke down as well, and not all players were available to start. So these things can happen. And I suppose if you're not prepared for the game, they can be derailers. So yeah, I just took great confidence knowing that at that final training session of the week, I was good to go, regardless of what happened on game day.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Caity. Question 5. So actually, I already did that one. 6. What did your weekly schedule look like when you played elite netball with the Firebirds? What did you do to help prepare for a big week? So it's sort of like the same as the last question, but yeah.
Well, there's sort of 2 different phases with the Firebirds training. There was the pre-season schedule and then the in-season schedule. So the pre-season schedule is all about building fitness and strength and combinations with your teammates. But we often did double sessions 4 out of the 5 days midweek. So it was quite tiring. The actual timing of the trainings were a little bit different, but we'd probably be training about 4 hours, 4.5 hours a day midweek. And then on the weekend, we might have a practice match or a camp, or it may be a rest time. But during the pre-season, it was training under fatigue for that whole time. But it was really important preparation for the season ahead. And then when we moved into the actual competition phase, it was all about preparing you for the game. So you would have heavy sessions probably earlier in the week, and then they start to slightly taper so that you're feeling nice and fresh and ready to go. So there was sort of a lot of different types of training blocks. Recovery was really important. So we had physios, massage therapists. We also did lots of foam rolling and trigger ball exercises ourselves as well to keep our body feeling nice and fresh so that we could maximize the training sessions that we were doing. But yeah, lots of training. It felt a lot harder in the pre-season, but obviously the competition phase was what we all trained for.
Yeah. And just touching on that as well, obviously, yeah, pretty big weeks for training. So how do you sort of balance that? So like you do a bit of podiatry on the side of netball. How did you sort of balance netball and work?
That's a great question, because everybody seems to balance sport with school or work. What I found was that a diary is really important to map out all of your school requirements, all of your training requirements. And I suppose I just knew when I had free time to be able to finish my study or recover or see my patients. So I had quite a clear schedule, so I knew exactly what was going on. So I think organisation is the key. The most challenging time would be for you with study, because you've got your study, you've got your sport, and maybe even a part-time job as well. So lots to navigate. I often got a little bit stressed, I suppose, during the exam times. But I don't know whether you agree with this as well, but every time that I'd go to a training session, even though I might be like, oh, I need to study a little bit more, I go to training, I'm feeling fresh, I can focus better. And I find that the sport actually helped with what I was doing study-wise. And that was the same with podiatry. My busiest day was a Thursday, and I'd train in the morning, then go to podiatry, see patients through the day, and then train in the evening. And podiatry, I suppose, distracted me a little bit from my training. I didn't blow a situation out of proportion because I was focusing on something else. I immersed myself in that environment, and I really enjoyed looking after feet. And then when I came back to training, I was feeling more fresh and ready to go. So I actually found that while it was tough and it was busy, but the two professions complemented one another and seemed to get the best out of me if we look at it from a performance point of view.
Yeah, awesome. So we'll go on to the next question. So what sort of foods do you eat around trainings and games?
Yeah. A whole range of foods. I was quite lucky that I didn't have a sensitive tummy and I could eat a variety of different foods. I think the timing of the foods is probably the biggest thing that I focused on. So I always would try to eat something like a bigger size meal with some carbohydrates about 3 hours before I would play, and then have a top-up snack around an hour before I play. So the bigger carbohydrate meal, we played a lot at lunchtime, so it was sort of my breakfast. So I'd have like eggs on toast with avocado, definitely my favorite. And then the hour before might be something like yogurt and muesli with some fruit or banana or pikelets or something like that, just as a little top up to enable you to have energy. But the other thing I think is important is water and being hydrated. Can't underestimate the importance of hydration for your games as well, because that can affect your concentration also. So yeah, fueling your body really well and keeping hydrated sets you up the best you can in regards to your game.
Yeah, awesome. And also on that topic, do you guys, so what did you sort of eat post-game as well?
Yeah, so post-game, you really want to make sure that you recover it well, because you're preparing straight away for that next game ahead or that next training session. So we'd always try to have some sort of, again, carbohydrates and protein, and we would try to get it somewhere between sort of a half an hour window post-game. So with the Firebirds and I suppose the Suncorp Super Netball, because there's lots of fan engagement after the game, having it in drink form is a really quick and easy way to get the nutrients that you need in, because you don't have that same time to be able to sit down and eat it. So that way we could do what we could recovery-wise with our body, and then also be able to interact with the people that came to the game, which is a really important part for our sport. So yeah, you can have food, and you can have different types of drinks as well. It depends. Everybody has different needs, I suppose.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. All right. What best tip to lose a defender who is keeping up with you the whole game?
I think the best thing, and I know that we sort of touched on it as well in our training sessions, as an attacker, I think the best thing that you can be is creative, because if you keep doing the same patterns over and over again, those smart defenders will be able to pick up on what you do and try to make you uncomfortable. So if you can slightly change your move or slightly change the direction of where you are going, what you'll find is that they'll possibly have to look over their shoulder to see what you're doing, and that gives you that one step ahead. And in netball, you only need a small little margin to be able to get the ball. So as an attacker, I think the best thing that you can be is creative and try to work on different types of movement patterns to just keep the opposition guessing.
Yeah. And that sort of goes with the first 3 steps to a sprint as well. Can that also account for it as well?
Yeah, yep, definitely. If you can time it really well, those first 3 steps can be really powerful, and you can get free of your defender. And it's better to be slightly late than early in terms of that lead. So sometimes I get probably a little bit too excited and be there too early. So yeah, the best thing that you can be is later. We've got 3 seconds with the ball. Otherwise, if you're there early, then you're bringing your defender in there and you have to make another lead. So yeah, first 3 steps are really powerful. Possibly delay that move and then keep variety in what you're doing, and then that way as an attacker you're dictating the defender.
Yeah, awesome. All right, question 10. So this is sort of on the same topic. How to handle a rough defender and what can we do to try and keep off it? So sort of the same thing, but
yeah. Well, what I found in the Suncorp Super Netball was that every year the competition was becoming a little bit more physical, and the body presence was there more and more. So it was something that was quite challenging, and something that I definitely had to learn to navigate. Particularly because I was quite a slight player. I couldn't outmuscle the defenders that were really rough, and I had to use my agility and my speed and possibly my game smarts to be able to get around those players. So the biggest thing that would be beneficial with a rough player is to just get off the body, give you more space to work with, because then they're uncomfortable. Whereas if you're doing lots of your dodges in the space that the defender is occupied, then you're sort of playing to their strength. So stepping away, giving yourself more room, you're more likely to be able to get around them with greater ease. And then I also found utilising my teammate very helpful. So Gretel and I used to set a lot of screens. So Gretel ended up collecting my defender and I'd be totally free. So she had to do all of the hard work, but sometimes you can leverage off your teammate as well to be able to take away your opposition's strength. So yeah, individually, give yourself space, get away from them. And then you can also mix it up by trying to take them into your teammate, and then you're free for a really easy ball.
Yeah, thanks, Caity. And also on that, I have been watching a bit of the 2019 replays of the Super Netball, and I was watching the Firebirds, I think, Vixen's game. And yeah, I could see Gretel doing lots of screens. It was amazing to watch, I guess, her free so you could get out to the centre pass.
Yeah, I was really lucky that she did the hard work in terms of taking the body and then would still be able to get free. So, yeah, very lucky to have that support next to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did try and, in my netball team, try and combat that in. So I started telling the coach, you know, this is what I learnt. Hopefully this will help the team. And so we got a screen happening, and I guess all the girls learning how to do a screen, because some of them were like, what? And yeah, as soon as we got into it, like everyone was so excited, because such a pretty easy move to make on the netball court.
It is, and it can catch the defenders off guard. So I'm rapt that you've been able to talk with that with your team as well and try to implement it, because you need your teammates to know what you're doing. Otherwise, if you're just working in isolation with one another, they can't help you there. So yeah, that's great to hear that you've been able to pass that on.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, so question 11. So best tip to create something out of nothing in an instance in a game. And I've watched this so much with you and Gretel, like so amazing. Yeah, so how do you do that?
I suppose even the first thing that comes to mind for me is that, you know, in games, how sometimes the momentum is just with the opposition, and no matter what you're doing, it's somehow the rub of the green is with them. You've got to be able to disrupt it to be able to change that. Otherwise, the lead can just blow out into something that's a little bit harder to chase down. So I suppose if they've got the ball in hand, you've just got to take that risk and somebody's got to try to get an intercept. However, if Gabby Simpson flies for an intercept, then you need Kim Jenner to back them up, and then Tara needs to back up the player as well. So everybody in the team has to be able to support one another with somebody taking a risk to try to get possession. And then I suppose once you've got the ball in hand, you've just got to take a breath, because sometimes when you get an intercept, you're just like, oh my goodness, I've got the ball in my hand. And sometimes you can just throw it away in that first passage of play. So you've got to be able to get the intercept, regroup, and be able to take it down for an easier shot at goal. And then you start building that confidence and that trust again back in the group. So it is a really challenging thing with momentum. Yeah, but I'd probably say that sometimes a player, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the same person each time, but a player does have to take a risk and the whole team needs to support that player and be able to back them up as well.
Yeah, awesome. Question 12, when things or in a particular set play is not going well, what do we do?
I suppose that comes down to what you've worked on during the week or what you know that your team is really good at. So did you say the set plays aren't working or they are working?
Sometimes so we had a practice match the other day, and this goes for any, like, whoever's tuning in, when we get it up on the Instagram page. But yeah, a lot of, like, we had a practice match a couple of weeks ago, and it was sort of like our game plan and like set plays just weren't working. Like we were trying to, set up a wide and then like an overload and all that sort of stuff, and it just wasn't working. And yeah, I guess it just sort of brought our confidence down.
So the best thing that you could probably do there is talk to one another. So you might be feeling one way and your teammate might be feeling another. So you could say, oh, I don't think this is working. What do you think? And just have like a quick conversation so that you could then attempt to change things together. Because again, when we talk about momentum, sometimes everybody, you can't question people's work ethic and what they're trying to do. Everyone works so hard to try to break the momentum, but working in isolation is nearly worse. So if you can have a quick chat or a quick conversation with your teammate, you might be able to come up with a strategy together. Or if for some reason you can't figure out the idea in that moment, by bringing it up with your neighbour out there on court, they might be able to create the answer. So I find that the difference between good teams and great teams is being able to problem solve as the game goes. And sometimes the game plan may not work straight away. You might have to find other ways to combat it, but you still can go back to that at some stage. So yeah, chatting, I suppose, with your teammate might be able to help you through it rather than trying to problem solve with everybody on their own.
Yeah, and that's something we could probably talk about at training as well. Would be a really good thing as well.
Yeah, and some teams have key words as well to reset. So they might have a particular word that everybody knows to lift or to do something in regards to an action word to try to get everybody back on that same page. But communication is probably the key, because you don't want to be doing it by yourself. And if you can talk to somebody, and you might only be able to get like 3 words out, but by verbalizing something, you might be able to initiate some sort of change.
Yeah, awesome. All right. What is your advice to grassroots netballers to move forward? Best possible pathway to take?
I suppose if we look at grassroots to start off with, I think it's really important that everybody tries all of the positions out there on court, because we don't know what height, size, physical build we're going to be able to end up with. So I think it's really important to have a taste of all of those skill sets, and then you can start, I suppose, specialising from there. I think the other thing, if you're aspiring to be an elite netball player, is that everybody's pathway is different. Yep, there is a particular pathway for each state, which recommends you go through different stages. But what you'll find is each player enters that pathway at a different stage. And if I use myself as an example, I entered it, exited it, entered it, went back out again, and went back in again, was out for like 5 years and then came back in again. So I think it's important to know that you can still make the top. You don't have to go through every step along the way. And if you've got passion and you're determined and you're willing to work hard, I think that dreams are worthwhile chasing.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Oh, what's the best tip to slot in with new players? What do you need to do to work with new players at trials or even in your new team? What's your tip?
I suppose you need to know what each other's strengths are so that you can complement one another. So it's important for you to know what you're good at. Also, it's important for you to know what your limitations are. But if you can have that understanding as well of your teammates, you'll be able to support them and make each other look good, I suppose. So the best thing in terms of new players is just try to form some relationships and understanding of one another so that you can work more effectively out on court. And then the better your relationship is, and you don't have to be best friends with everybody in your team, but if you have a good understanding of one another, you can have those 3-word chats really quickly and be able to implement change. Whereas if you don't quite know each other as well, and you can have a really short, sharp chat, it may not be received in a very good way. So I think that can't underestimate the importance of just good relationships with each other, and that will definitely help.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so 16, how can we be a good teammate on and off the court, especially when we can't see our teammates at the moment?
Yeah, well, I think like this, I think that FaceTiming and still having some social connection and interaction is really important. And you might even be able to provide motivation or even accountability for one another with doing sessions and making sure that you stay active, because unfortunately it is what it is at the moment with COVID-19, and we can't really say poor me. There's so many opportunities to be able to train. We can still engage with one another from afar. But I think that we've just got to be really creative. And I know that I'm a social person, so I need to FaceTime people to chat and still be connected. That's a very big part of who I am. So, and I know that, you could do the same thing. And there's group chat boxes that you can pop up everybody's face on the screen and still stay connected. So it's not a waste of a period right now. We just need to be, creative and just reset our goals momentarily.
Yeah. Awesome. So almost done. What ways do you like to keep fit when you're limited and what you can do? So sort of on the same thing again.
So there's lots of different things that we can still do at the moment. So you can still go to the park area and do some running sessions and some training. If you've got a brick wall at home, you can throw netballs against walls and still be able to get that fine touch in regards to your hands. So that's really important from a netball point of view. And then, like I was talking about with netball, and being an attacker particularly, you can use footwork agility patterns and try to challenge your creative flair with different types of movements so that can transfer as well onto the netball court. So it is still really important to keep active, because if we stop exercising for the moment and then sport returns in a couple of months, then what we'll see is a really big spike in injuries. So we want to have some sort of load. We still want to use the time now, so you can still use your ball craft if you've got a wall at home or possibly a parent or sibling to help. You can still do some footwork patterns, and then when you get the opportunity to get out on grass as well by yourself, you can still maintain some fitness. So it's just different, and unfortunately, it's just a different time.
Yeah. So last question. How do you think we can make this challenging time into a positive one?
Yeah, well, I think that we've just got to focus on what we can control. We can't control what the government is restricting at this stage, and we've just got to make the most of what we're doing. So I'm still learning how to run again after my knee injury. And while I can't go to the gym and lift heavy weights, I can still do different types of weights at home. I've just had to adjust my rep range. I can still go for a run, but I can still cycle by myself. So I've just had to slightly alter what I'm doing so that I can keep that momentum going forward. Otherwise, my rehab's going to blow out of proportion with time. So I think that it's just a mindset thing. We can't worry about what we can't control. We can need to focus our energy on what we can, because that's more worthwhile.
Yeah. Thanks, Caity. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up our questions for today. So yeah, thanks, Caity, for sharing.
No, thank you. They were brilliant questions, and I am absolutely rapt that you've been able to take those screens into your netball team as well back home. So
yeah, just trying to, well, hopefully be able to implement that. The skills that we learnt. Like I was talking to some girls about how we were doing tennis ball stuff as like a warm up, and like I'm so excited to do that once our season comes. I think it's a great.